I'm Stephen Hicks, professor of philosophy at Rockford College, and our guest today is Douglas Rasmussen from St. John's University in New York. Dr. Rasmussen is expert in political philosophy and ethical theory, and he was here today at Rockford College giving a lecture in our ethical theory class on Philippa Foot's Natural Goodness, a book published earlier this decade. To set some introductory framework here, in ethical theory is a distinction between normative ethics and meta-ethics. What is that distinction?
Well, the distinction goes this way. If we understand normative ethics to ask two questions, first, what, if anything, is inherently good, and two, what ought I to do, then normative ethics is concerned with trying to answer those questions and develop theories about that. Mm-hmm. Hedonism, eudaimonism, utilitarianism, duty ethics are examples of theories that try to answer those questions. Now, meta-ethics is the enterprise that examines the theories that try to answer those two normative questions. And the questions of meta-ethics then are about those theories, and there are two questions here. First, is there moral knowledge? In other words, do the ethical theories really amount to telling us what could possibly be true or false? And secondly, the question is, how do these moral theories use their ethical terms? How is the word good used? What does it mean? And so those are the two questions. So you've got normative ethics and you've got meta-ethics asking questions about the theories that normative ethics has.
Within the field of meta-ethics, you offered a twofold distinction between those approaches that are cognitivist and those that are non-cognitivist, and then also between those that are naturalist and those that are non-naturalist. What do those two distinctions amount to?
Right. Okay. So let's say we end up answering the first question: is there moral knowledge in a negative way? Is there moral knowledge, and we answer that negatively? Then we're saying that what these theories say about morality are not a matter of knowledge. And it's not the case, for example, that we could say that torturing babies for fun is wrong, or torturing babies for fun is good, that either of those statements is either true or false. There's something else. They're non-cognitive. If you want to say that either of those statements are true or false, then you're a cognitivist. Now, you know, in the history of ethics, there's a large contingent of people that actually are non-cognitivist. But if you're a cognitivist, then you say, well, no, there is moral knowledge. But now, when you come, is there moral knowledge, then what do the terms of morality refer to? What are they about? And it's where you ask the question, what is the meaning of an ethical term? And here, if you think an ethical term like good somehow refers to some fact about the nature of something or nature in general, or some fact about what things are, then you're called a naturalistic theorist. If you think that there's no reference to any item or to anything in nature or the nature of things, then you're a non-naturalistic theorist. So that's roughly what the distinction's about.
Excellent. Then to take Philippa Foot, at least in her book, Natural Goodness, to put her on the landscape here, so to speak, she is both a naturalist and a cognitivist.
Yeah, she's a naturalistic theorist and a cognitivist. So it means that she says, yes, there is moral knowledge. She's against the entire non-cognitivist movement. But moreover, she wants to say that when we try to understand what morality is about, we need to take a look at the nature of things. And particularly here, what she wants to say is that in understanding what human moral goodness is, we have to look at the nature of a human being, but there's an analogy between that and the nature of living things. Okay. So that when we come to understand what the nature of a living thing is, what a living thing is, what allows that living thing to grow, to develop, to complete, to perfect is an old-fashioned word for it, that there is an analogy between how that works for living things, from plants and animals and human beings, and so that we get an insight into what moral goodness is by looking at the nature of a human being, just as we get a general understanding of what goodness is by looking at the nature of any living thing.
Okay. Now, much of this language sounds very Aristotelian, historically speaking. Aristotle's putting ethical issues in a functional context or in a biological context, speaking a lot about needs and capacities and their fit to an environment. Or we could say it's Aristotelian as channeled through the Thomistic tradition, emphasizing potentialities and actualization and perfectionism and so forth. In your judgment, is Foot in her natural goodness of a piece with that tradition? Is she an Aristotelian? Is she a Thomist? Or is she developing, broadly speaking, in that same territory, nonetheless another species, so to speak, of naturalistic cognitivism?
Yeah, I think I think who influenced her a lot is the moral philosopher Elizabeth Anscombe, in her 1957 article, Moral Philosophy, and all of that. And I think that influences her a lot. And I think, I think just to call her an Aristotelian or a Thomist unqualifiedly would be wrong. But I think she's in that ballpark. It's a wide ballpark, it's a big ballpark, but I think she's in that. I think it would be a mistake to read her as just an advocate of evolutionary ethics or something where you are a naturalist, where you want to reduce the good to just a set of properties. I think she has an idea here that ultimately we are after a thing achieving its life form, about it developing itself, completing itself. And what she does, and this is what I think is very interesting, is that she adds to the traditional perfectionist account of goodness as the completion or perfection of a thing, the idea of need or benefit, so that it's not just being a good X, but being something being good for X. And in a living thing, those two locutions go together. And so that when we talk about is something really fulfilling its nature, it's also doing something that's in principle good for it. And so, yes, I think she's a part of that Aristotelian Thomistic tradition, very widely understood. But I think she's also is feeling her own way on a lot of things.
Now, put her on the landscape of contemporary meta-ethics. Is it fair to say that much of the 20th century and early 21st century has been non-naturalist and non-cognitivist, or some intersection of those approaches has been the dominant view? Is Philippa Foot's approach then new? Is it gaining ascendancy? Where would you put her in the landscape, so to speak, today?
I think it would be fair to say that the naturalistic approach to goodness and ethics for most of the 20th century was not something very popular, something that was a dominant view. There were people that thought that, but that wasn't the dominant view. And for a large part of the 20th century, and still even now, the non-cognitivist views, especially in terms of expressivism, where moral statements are neither true nor false, but just expressions of one's feelings and attitudes, have been dominant. But there's also been a rise of cognitivism, moral realism, but not necessarily a cognitivism that has a naturalistic foundation. I think Foot, though, has helped to develop this theory, which has been developing in general along the lines with what they call virtue ethics. And so I think what we're seeing is a resurgence. I mean, I think this is a definite contender among the prevailing theories, where in the 20th century it just wasn't given too much attention. I think it's back, and hopefully back to stay.
All right. Enjoyed your talk today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.